Mr. Hideo Kojima. Industry icon, Mr. Hideo Kojima.
Kojima's style breaks the barrier between cinema and games.
You're such a genius, seriously. I opened my eyes to a whole new world.
Hideo Kojima. Just hearing the name sparks excitement and anticipation in many gamers all around the world. With countless awards on games he directed, there's no argue about the creative mastermind this man possesses. But who is Hideo Kojima really? How is he able to captivate us every single time? And what is his greater goal in the end?
Oh yeah!
Kojima was born 1963 in the countryside of Tokyo, Japan, which he and his family left for Osaka only 4 years later. This abrupt change of environment made him spend much of his time indoors watching television and making figurines. Here, the family developed a tradition which would end up being one of the biggest influences for Kojima's creativity.
Every night we would all watch a film together. I wasn't allowed to go to bed till the film had finished, the opposite of how it is for most children. They wouldn't just show me kids' films. I'd even see the sex scenes.
Being a daydreamer his entire life, Kojima was excited to make his own movies when a friend brought a Super 8 camcorder to school.
To be honest, my friends weren't really as into making films as I was, but I convinced them all to make some zombie films with me. You see, every year there was a culture festival held at our school. My idea was to make a zombie film, show it there and sell tickets in order to make some money with which we could buy more films to watch. We sold tickets for about 50p. But we didn't make enough money to buy even one film.
Later on, when Kojima enrolled at university to study economics, his focus was still drawn to the film industry, writing novels in the hopes to win awards and get a chance making his own movies, just this time real ones.
I am the father.
It was around this time when he saw Nintendo's Famicom, which is the Japanese market version for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it immediately struck him that this might be another route into making film-like experiences.
And while it's true that I entered the games industry specifically because I couldn't find a way into movies, I soon fell in love with games.
From today's perspective, this looks like an absolutely reasonable decision, but back then, there were very few industries in Japan that were frowned upon like gaming.
When I announced my decision, all of my friends and lecturers begged me to reconsider. They thought I was crazy, to be honest.
Kojima's embarrassment following his friend's contempt led him to apply for a job at Konami out of all possibilities. The single reason for that decision wasn't the type of games Konami made, but the fact that they were heavily revenue focused and the only games company that was listed in the stock exchange. It gave him hope that working for a company like that might help people to view his vocation in a more positive light. But embarrassment wasn't the only feeling his friend's disdain triggered in him.
Right from the start, I believed I was creating art. I felt like the world was waiting to see what video games could be, what they could become.
Kojima joined Konami as an assistant director, and just after his very first game, Penguin Adventure, which had surprisingly deep mechanics for a game of its time, like multiple endings and upgrading equipment, he was asked to take over his very first own project, Metal Gear. It was supposed to be an action war game, which were pretty popular at the time. But being the creative mind Kojima is, he refused to make just another war game and brought in influences from films he enjoyed, mainly The Great Escape, which shifted the focus from fighting to an escaping prisoner. That at least was Kojima's vision. It was a type of game that didn't exist at the time, and with no released games under his direction, people just didn't take it seriously. After a couple of frustrating months, he finally was able to get the support of the most senior member within his team, who arranged a proper chance to pitch the idea to all his higher-ups, finally getting the needed approval for it. Thus, the cornerstone of Metal Gear as a stealth game was built, releasing its first game in 1987 on the MSX2. Later that year, adding the Nintendo Entertainment System, with a hero who was here to stay: Solid Snake.
Snake! Snake!
The NES version was, with over 1 million sold units, a massive success in the West. Thus, Konami commissioned a sequel, Snake's Revenge, without any involvement of Kojima whatsoever. With the game being developed for the Famicom and Kojima working in the MSX department, he didn't even knew about the sequel and was working on his next game, Snatcher, and graphic adventure game with visual novel elements that ended on a cliffhanger, because his cinematic storytelling ambitions were just putting him over the given schedule, even though he already cut more than half of it. One day on his train ride home, Kojima met a colleague and former team member who got assigned to the Famicom department. He was working on Snake's Revenge and revealed to him that this didn't felt like an actual sequel. Kojima should make a real sequel instead.
So on my way home, I began to think about what that might look like. Without that encounter, I probably wouldn't have pursued a proper sequel, and there might never have been a Metal Gear Solid.
With the trust Kojima gained from the first game, he was able to secure a good budget for his sequel plans. But there was another, since the beginning, existing problem, which increasingly bothered him. With no programming knowledge, Kojima was reliant on other people to make his vision come through. And even though they received very clear instructions, it was a regular occurrence programmers would change up things to what they thought was best. And while Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake was a success, these problems resulted in Kojima developing his own scripting engine, which he used on his next game, Policenauts.
It was a way to take creative control back from the programmers. It is finally here. It's utter genius. I can create amazing, remarkable things with this.
In 1994, with the release of the PlayStation, Kojima started his most passionate project yet, Metal Gear Solid. A game that would end up being so far ahead of everything else. After the reveal at 1997's E3, rumors started spreading the game wouldn't either be real or simply not running on the PlayStation, resulting in an invitation of game fans to take a look on their work and prove, yes, it is real.
Psycho Mantis.
The work behind this masterpiece was everything but easy and simple. Real-life Lego models would demonstrate the world. Plastic models of every vehicle had been personally handcrafted by the art director, Yoji Shinkawa, who got recruited straight out of the university by Kojima himself. The team was kept at a small size of 20 people to ensure Kojima knew what was going on in each step of the development, as well as keeping a personal connection to his team.
You're that ninja.
Metal Gear Solid ended up being a far greater success than Kojima could have ever imagined, and the praise he received from every side would not only be the start of people recognizing him, more importantly, he got promoted into a managerial role at Konami and could secure even more budget for his next games, enabling him to bring even more of his practically endless creative visions to life. The next entry to the franchise would prove how great his vision and how important the full story package to Kojima really is.
Treat your cardboard box with care. Take care of the box and it'll take care of you.
Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty for the PlayStation 2 was an absolute unique masterpiece for its time. Every play minute the game tries to deceive you of what is actually happening, giving ridiculous plot twists at the end and even predicting the future of the internet, being all about memes, censorships, malicious use of wrong information, and changing not only the course of the government with it, but also average people's minds, and the democratic flaws coming with that. In a time when internet was barely getting into mainstream, Kojima even purposely fooled consumers by showing a teaser picture of the game, in which you could see Solid Snake frightened by a silhouette of the villain Vulcan Raven, who clearly didn't survive the previous game. Rumors and theories spread for months about how the character was able to be alive, only to realize in the playthrough that the silhouette was merely a tiny action figure placed in front of a spotlight. The following years, Kojima kept producing and directing game after game, reaching big professional and personal milestones. 2004, his massive success led to his mother constantly bragging about his son, for a job that just a couple years earlier one would be ashamed to even speak of.
It was sweet. By that time, she was 70 years old, but she decided that she was going to play through my games. It took her an entire year to complete Metal Gear Solid 3. She would get her friends to help her. When she defeated the end, she called me up and said, "It is finished."
2005, after Konami merged several subsidiaries, including Kojima's group at Konami, Kojima Productions, with Hideo at lead, was formed. While still being a department of Konami, this gave Kojima a lot more independence and resources to focus more on the creative aspect of his work. 2008, after the release of Metal Gear 4 Guns of the Patriots, Kojima received the first ever existing Lifetime Achievement Award for games at the 2008 MTV Game Awards in Germany.
I have to say, even though I have received this award, let me state that I will not retire.
And in 2011, still carrying on the tradition his father imbued into him by watching a movie every single day, Kojima was promoted to Executive Vice President and Corporate Officer in Konami Digital Entertainment.
I wouldn't have taken the managerial role if I wasn't heavily involved in the creative process too. I have to have a creative role, otherwise I simply wouldn't come into work. I try to always have a game design role as part of my responsibilities at any one time. If I didn't have this, I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
No career advancement can dampen Kojima's love for his art. He truly cares about the things he creates, which he also proved back in 2009, when he would take over the direction on Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, even though he announced that Metal Gear Solid 4 would be the last Metal Gear he would get involved in.
There was a lot of confusion within the team, and it didn't proceed as I wanted it to. Therefore, I thought that I needed to jump in and do Peace Walker.
The following years, while working on Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain, and the new entry of the Silent Hill franchise with Guillermo del Toro featuring Walking Dead star Norman Reedus, Kojima's darkest hour was on its way. The relationship between him and Konami's higher-ups was getting increasingly tense. His promotion to Executive Vice President had one core reason: to assign Hideo Kojima the responsibility of all console games, so that the rest of Konami could focus their attention towards their future: mobile games. Ever since the first iPhone came out, Konami was observing the market very closely, starting the first own mobile game in 2010. These had all things a business wants: lower cost and higher profit. Kojima though wasn't interested in a profitable business, but in creating great games, which in the end had no relevance for his employer when this means less money. The problem started to climax when in March 2014 Konami promoted Tomohiro Uesugi, who was known for his revenue-based approaches, to president of Konami Digital Entertainment. A year later, Tomohiro's work behind the scenes ended in a full corporate restructure, which included the closure of Kojima Productions to enable a headquarters-controlled production structure, changing every single senior member from an employee to a contractor and restricting their access to corporate internet, emails and phone calls. Silent Hills, the already announced and promoted new Kojima game, simply got cancelled, which really is a shame, because if Hideo is good at something, it's creating atmosphere and complex storylines, both which the franchise was already known for. Also, every mention of Kojima's name got removed from the marketing campaign of Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, even though he worked on it until the end to ensure the quality of his work. On October 9th, 2015, after 29 years of work and a melancholic farewell party, Hideo Kojima left his office at Konami Digital Entertainment for the last time.
I was creating games for 30 years and I was very confident about creating games, but I had nothing to start with. It was from scratch. No office, no staff, no materials or things to work on, no machines. I thought I had lost everything.
I'm back!
One day. Exactly one day after his contract with Konami ended on December 15, 2015, Kojima announced not only the founding of the now independent Kojima Productions, including many of his former senior co-workers and his art director, Yoji Shinkawa, but also his partnership with Sony. Kojima didn't lose anything. He still had his incredible talent, the many relationships he built over the years, eternal youth, and the unrestricted trust of his fans. Always staying true to his roots, Kojima made sure he knew every single member of his team well by keeping the studio's size in the 2 digits, watching a movie every day, and even started a YouTube channel to talk about films with critic Kenji Yano, later using that channel to promote the first game of Kojima Productions, Death Stranding. Never being scared of turning away from established formulas, he created something absolutely unique. A whole new genre, many say, but still with the Kojima trademark elements people know and love his games for. An incredible atmosphere, complex storyline, and cinematic qualities, including actors like his good friend Norman Reedus. Death Stranding 2 on the horizon, his own podcast for Spotify, the plan to make his own films in the future. Despite his massive setback, Kojima's future seems to be a bright one. Which brings us back to the core question. What was his great goal? And did he achieve it?
I will not retire. I will continue to create games as long as I live.
With a gaze that always sees something greater, Hideo Kojima of 2023 is exactly where he wants to be and does what he loves the most: creating art.